The sun blazed down, hotter than it had any right to be in early May. I stood at the entrance of the graduation hall, the heavy weight of my cap and gown clinging to me like a shroud. My heart pounded with anticipation. Today should have been my day, the culmination of years of hard work. But as I scanned the rows of empty seats in the auditorium, my stomach twisted. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. They weren't coming. No texts, no calls, not even a "we're on our way, honey." My mother, my father, Luke, nothing. Just the silent hum of the crowd around me. My eyes flickered over to the empty row where my family should have been sitting. It felt like I was drowning in that void. The ceremony began, but it might as well have been happening on another planet. I waited for it. A message, a call. Something. Nothing. The weight of 1,000 unspoken words pressed on my chest. This wasn't just neglect, it was intentional. They had purposefully chosen to ignore me, and I knew it. No one had to tell me. I stepped outside for air, hoping to calm the rising tide of anger, but it wouldn't settle. I pulled my phone from my pocket. No new messages, not even from Luke, the golden child, the one who never needed to try, but still got everything handed to him, the one who had always been the center of attention, who got all the love, the praise, the status, the one who never had to fight for a second of their time. I sent a quick message to my mom, my fingers trembling as I typed, "I'm on stage. You didn't come." I hit send and waited. 10 seconds passed, then 20. No response. I wasn't surprised. I called her, but it went straight to voicemail. The phone buzzed in my hand. Luke, of course. I almost didn't pick up, but I did. "Hey, congrats." His voice was cool, distant. No real emotion there. I could almost hear the clinking of glass in the background. "Sorry I missed it. Big barbecue at the house. You know how it goes." A barbecue. I wasn't even worth their time for a quick text. But Luke had found time for a party. I gripped the phone harder, my knuckles turning white. "Luke, what the hell?" He sighed. I know. You're probably upset, but..." "Upset?" My voice was rising, catching in my throat. "You don't even care, do you? You purposefully skipped my graduation. Why?" There was silence for a long moment, and I could hear his breathing. Finally, he spoke again, the words barely audible. "Look, we couldn't make it, okay? It's just one day. Don't make this a big deal." I could feel the rage bubbling up inside me, choking my throat. "One day." "One day," he said. "The one day that was supposed to mark everything I had worked for." I snapped the phone shut, my pulse pounding in my temples. I was nothing to them, a shadow, a ghost in their world. But something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to be ignored anymore. This time, I wasn't going to wait for them. I would make them see me, even if I had to burn their whole world down to do it. The air was thick, suffocating. I didn't care. I would take control. I started walking towards my car. No turning back. Not this time. The weight of the silence felt suffocating, but there was something else, too. Something darker. The doors of the hall slammed shut behind me as I pushed the door open, and the sounds of the ceremony faded into the distance. There was a noise in the back of my mind like a warning, a sharp ping. They had no idea what they had just set in motion. I slid into the driver's seat and locked the door, the engine humming to life. My fingers gripped the steering wheel tighter, and I glanced at the text message that had come through during the call from my mother. "Sorry, honey. Something came up. We'll catch you next time." I gritted my teeth. There would be no next time for them. This game had just changed, and they wouldn't know what hit them. I didn't even make it home before the weight of everything began to crush me. The more I thought about what happened at graduation, the more the anger festered in my chest. They'd done this on purpose. I had been discarded, made invisible in the most important moment of my life, all for reasons I couldn't quite grasp. But I would, soon enough. I would unravel every thread they thought was buried. The phone buzzed in my hand. Luke again. I took a deep breath before answering. Yeah, I said, my voice sharp, barely controlled. You're still mad, aren't you? He didn't wait for an answer. Look, I know you're pissed, but you've got to understand there was nothing we could do. Mom, Dad, this barbecue was important. His voice had that same cool, dismissive tone that always made my blood boil, as if I was the unreasonable one, as if I was the problem here. Important. I spat. You're telling me your family couldn't come to my graduation because of some barbecue? Are you serious? I heard him sigh. Just forget about it. It's one day. You'll get over it. I ended the call before I could say something I'd regret. As the hours passed, I drove aimlessly through Houston's sprawling streets, the engine humming under my frustration. The anger in my chest was only growing. They had no idea what they had just set in motion. They thought I was weak, that I'd let it slide like I always had. But not this time. The truth had been gnawing at me for years, and now it was bursting to the surface. I pulled into the driveway of a shabby office on the edge of the city, a building I'd passed hundreds of times but had never paid attention to. Tonight, that building would be my first clue. It was time to get answers. Inside, the dim fluorescent lights flickered as I walked past a disinterested receptionist. I barely registered her face as I headed toward the back offices. I was here for one reason. I knocked once before stepping into the small, cluttered office. A private investigator. Lena Harris, I said flatly. I need you to find something for me. Something. The investigator raised an eyebrow. I slid a photo across the desk, a picture of my father's signature. The signature on a legal document I'd found earlier in his study. A document that was supposed to be locked away. I need you to dig into this. I know it's not right. He raised his head, eyes scanning the paper. What exactly are you looking for? Anything that tells me why they've been hiding things from me. I know about the trust, the one my dad set up, but I need more than just what's on the surface. He leaned back in his chair, assessing me with a glance. You sure you want to go down this road, Lena? Digging into your family's business is a dangerous game. I stared at him, unblinking. I'm already playing it. I just didn't realize it until today. Fine, he said after a long moment. I'll see what I can do. As I left the office, the weight of the investigation settled over me like a cloak. I couldn't help but feel the eyes on me, like someone was watching. My skin prickled, but I didn't look back. There was no turning back now. The next morning, I went to my father's office. The penthouse in downtown Houston was massive, the kind of place you walk into and immediately feel the weight of wealth pressing on your chest. I stood at the elevator, staring at the golden doors. Inside, behind the pristine glass windows, my father had hidden his secrets. I knew he was at work, which meant he wouldn't be here. But that didn't matter. The building's security system was nothing compared to what I had planned. I moved quickly, slipping past the front desk and down the hallway leading to his personal office. The lock was a simple keypad, a task I could easily bypass with a few moments of concentration. It opened with a soft beep. Inside was the stark, cold luxury I'd grown up with, sleek, polished furniture, the same sterile ambience I'd always felt suffocated by. But today it felt different. Today, I wasn't a child anymore. The walls felt like they were closing in. I quickly walked over to his desk, rummaging through papers, looking for anything that might tell me where he had hidden the documents. There, under a stack of legal folders, I found the folder I was looking for. The name on the front was enough to make my heart race. Harris Family Trust. I ripped the folder open. Inside were several pages of investment statements, tax records, and something that made my blood run cold. A revised will. It was new. It was fresh. It had been signed just weeks ago, and it didn't have my name on it. Not anywhere. I scanned the document, my hands trembling. Luke's name was there. Jessica's name was there. But mine? Gone. Completely erased. I snapped the folder shut, my breath coming in ragged gasps. There was no denying it now. They were trying to cut me out. This wasn't just about skipping my graduation. It was about control. My father had made sure I'd never inherit anything. I walked out, my mind spinning. They didn't just want me to be invisible. They wanted me gone. As I stepped out of the building, a sudden noise made me freeze. A soft click from the shadows. I turned, but no one was there. My pulse quickened. I felt it again, the feeling that I wasn't alone. Someone was watching. Someone had been watching me for days. I grabbed my phone and checked my messages. Nothing new. But then there it was, a single text from my mother. I hope you found what you were looking for. The words hit like a punch to the stomach. They knew. The game had changed again. I wasn't just fighting for my inheritance anymore. I was fighting for my life. I drove for hours, the engines hum a steady reminder of the chaos racing through my mind. The sun was sinking low in the sky, casting long shadows across the streets of Houston as I turned the corner onto Woodland Avenue. The lights of the city blinked in the distance, but here the world felt far away, quiet, suffocating. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching, waiting for me to make a move. The documents from my father's office were still fresh in my bag, the paper burning a hole in my chest. The Harris Family Trust. What a joke. I hadn't just been erased. I had been discarded. My fingers clenched the steering wheel, the muscles in my arms tight. I should have known, I muttered to myself. Always the backup, never the real choice. The words echoed in my head. They were nothing new. I had spent years trying to make them proud, trying to prove that I mattered. But as I sat there behind the wheel, I realized something. They'd been planning this for years. All my father's promises, all his talk about how I would one day inherit his empire, it was all lies. The trust was just the beginning. The real game was something much darker. The sound of my phone, buzzing, cut through the silence. I stared at the screen for a moment, almost afraid to answer. It was Luke. I hit the answer button, not even bothering to greet him. "Lena, where are you?" His voice was sharp, but underneath I could hear the panic. "You've been out all night. What's going on?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I know what you and Dad did. I saw the trust, the will, the signatures, and I know it's all bullshit." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Lena, this is not what you think. You don't understand. It's complicated." "No," I shot back, my voice like steel. "You don't understand. I'm done with being invisible. You don't get to control me anymore. You've taken everything. My future, my place in this family. And for what? So you could bury me under your lies." I heard him exhale slowly. "You need to calm down. There's more going on than you know. Trust me. You're not ready for what you're about to find." His words sent a chill down my spine, but I wasn't scared, not anymore. I hung up before he could say anything more. I was done being the good daughter, done being the afterthought. I parked outside a small cafe, the type of place that seemed out of place in this part of town. Quiet, unassuming. I needed information, and the only person who could get it for me was Nolan Dempsey, the one man who knew the darker side of my family. He was a former business associate of my father's, someone who had learned the hard way what it meant to trust the Harris family. I stepped inside, the bell above the door chiming as I walked in. The scent of stale coffee and old wood filled the air. Nolan sat in the back booth, hunched over a stack of papers. When he saw me, his eyes narrowed, but he didn't seem surprised. He was used to people coming to him when they needed something. I slid into the seat opposite him. I need to know what's really going on with my family, Nolan. I need the truth. He looked at me for a moment, then pushed a folder across the table. It was thick, too thick for just a few papers. It's not going to be pretty. I opened it slowly, my heart thudding in my chest. Inside were copies of documents, emails, and legal papers, all linked to my father's empire. My eyes stopped on one paper in particular, a series of encrypted messages that linked my father to someone I didn't recognize. Someone dangerous. Who is this? I asked, my voice shaking slightly. Nolan leaned back, rubbing his chin. You're not the only one your father has been using. These people, they don't play fair, Lena. They're in deep with money, power, and something darker. Your father's been selling your future to the highest bidder. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. What does that mean? Your dad has been working with a private syndicate. They deal in more than just business. They deal in control. The trust, the will, it's all a front. They've been grooming you for something else. Something far more sinister. I felt the blood drain from my face. My family wasn't just after my inheritance. They were using me. Nolan's eyes were cold, as if he knew the weight of what he had just revealed. This syndicate isn't just a business venture. It's an investment. They've been planning your future for you for years. You were never meant to inherit anything. You were meant to control something far bigger than money. Your father used you, Lena, and he's about to sell you off to them. My mind spun. It was all a setup. I slammed the folder shut, my fists clenched at my sides. What do they want from me? Nolan's voice dropped lower, barely a whisper. They want your compliance. And if you don't give it to them, well, let's just say your father's already made plans to get you out of the way. I stood up, knocking the table. Get me out of here. I need to go. Nolan grabbed my arm before I could leave. Lena, be careful. They're already watching you. You're in deeper than you think. I wrenched my arm free. I'm not scared of them. But as I stepped out of the cafe and into the street, the creeping feeling returned, the one that told me I wasn't alone. I could feel eyes on me. A black SUV sat parked across the street, its tinted windows hiding its occupants. I didn't stop walking, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I was being followed. I got into my car, my hands trembling, and drove off, trying to shake the paranoia. But I couldn't. Something was closing in, and I couldn't hide forever. I glanced at the rearview mirror one more time. The SUV was still there, and the chase had just begun. I didn't sleep that night. The more I thought about what Nolan had said, the more the walls started closing in. They were watching me. Everywhere I went, every step I took, I could feel their eyes on me. The whole family, my father, my brother, even my mother, they knew I was getting too close. The morning after the meeting with Nolan, the air was thick with unease. My phone buzzed, but when I checked it, it was just another message from Luke. Stop digging. You don't know what you're getting into. I threw my phone onto the couch and grabbed my jacket. I had a plan and I couldn't back out now. There was only one place I hadn't looked, the Harris family estate, the place where all the real answers were hidden. The mansion was where the most dangerous secrets had been buried. I needed to get into my father's office. The real documents, the ones that could expose everything, were locked inside. And this time, I wasn't just snooping. I was taking what I needed to destroy them. The house stood silent when I pulled up. The sprawling estate looked more like a fortress than a home. Big, empty, and cold. But this wasn't just about a house. This was about control. This was my chance to take everything back. I parked far enough away so no one would notice my car. The security system had always been a headache, but I'd been through it all before. A quick scan and I found the weak point. The back gate. A simple override. Easy. My heart pounded in my chest as I slipped inside the yard, moving like a shadow. I kept to the edges of the garden, where the tall hedges would shield me from the cameras. Every step felt like a countdown. I reached the back door and forced it open with a quick twist of the lock. Inside, I crept through the hallways, every floorboard creaking under my feet. The whole house felt like it was holding its breath. The smell of polished wood and stale air hit me, the faint hum of the air conditioning barely audible in the background. There was no one home. My father had been in meetings all day, and Luke, no doubt, was preoccupied with some social event. The perfect window. I headed straight for my father's office, my pulse quickening with each step. The heavy, ornate door loomed ahead, the wood carved with intricate designs. Inside it was cold, sterile, and intimidating, just like him. Everything had its place, everything in its right order, but not anymore. I approached his desk, the papers stacked neatly, almost taunting me. My fingers trembled as I opened the first drawer, but all I found were legal pads and paperwork for investments. I cursed under my breath, pulling open the next drawer. There, a thick manila folder labeled simply, Harris Trust Confidential. I yanked it open. Inside, the contents were worse than I had imagined. Pages of documents detailing assets, fake identities, and the names of people I didn't recognize. Names that were linked to financial and legal transactions that ran far deeper than I'd ever known. The trust wasn't just a family investment, it was a front. I froze. What the hell was this? The names on the papers were connected to criminal syndicates, the same ones Nolan had warned me about. My father had been playing a game of power I could never have understood. He wasn't just hiding money, he was laundering it. I quickly shoved the papers back into the folder and closed it, my mind racing. The truth was worse than I could have ever imagined. But I wasn't finished. There was one more place I needed to look, the safe in the back of the room. The real jackpot. I crossed the room, my steps swift and measured, my eyes darting to the clock on the wall. Every minute that passed brought me closer to being caught. My fingers were slick with sweat as I keyed in the code. I had memorized it when I was younger. The safe clicked open with a soft, metallic sound. Inside, I found what I needed. The deed to the mansion. A legal document that would seal my fate. It was supposed to go to me, but the signature on the bottom was different. Not just anyone's. Luke's. I slammed the safe shut, my heart hammering in my chest. This was it. The one thing they hadn't expected me to find. The final key to my escape. The deed was mine now. The sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway and I froze. Someone was coming. I cursed under my breath. I had to get out. I backed away from the desk, clutching the folder and deed tightly against my chest. I glanced toward the door. There was no time to escape the front way. I had to act fast. I dashed toward the back window, heart pounding in my ears. I pulled the curtains back, trying to keep my movements quiet. The window was locked, but it wouldn't stop me. I grabbed the metal rod from the nearby shelf and shoved it into the frame, forcing the lock open. The window cracked and I slipped out. As soon as I hit the ground, I took off running, not daring to look back. The mansion loomed behind me, dark and silent again. But this time it wasn't my home. It was my prison and I was breaking free. I got into my car and sped off, leaving the estate behind. But as I turned onto the highway, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. They knew. They always knew. I glanced in my rearview mirror, nothing. But the paranoia was starting to gnaw at me. I had what I needed. But how long until they came for it? I didn't wait long. I couldn't afford to. The weight of the papers in my bag felt like a ticking time bomb, and I knew exactly where I was headed next, the courthouse. Everything was about to change. The moment I stepped out of the car, I felt the familiar prickle on the back of my neck. I had barely made it out of the parking lot before I saw the black SUV pull into the street behind me. They were still following me. They always were. I didn't flinch. I had learned long ago how to keep my face neutral, how to blend into the crowd like I was invisible. Today, however, I was done with that. I had the power now. They could follow me all they wanted. I was the one who held the cards. The courthouse loomed ahead, tall and imposing, a place where the future could be rewritten with a single stroke of a pen. My heart raced with anticipation. I needed to get to the public records office. I knew what I had to do next. I had already made up my mind. Inside the courthouse, the air was thick with tension, and every step I took felt like it echoed through the cold marble halls. The security guard barely glanced at me as I passed. I was too familiar with this place, too used to slipping by unnoticed. But not today. Today, the building would bear witness to my rebirth. I walked up to the counter where a bored clerk sat, chewing gum, her eyes glued to her phone. "I need to file a document," I said, my voice flat but firm. She looked up a little annoyed. "What kind of document?" "A name change petition," I replied. I handed her the papers from the Harris Family Trust, the deed to the mansion, the list of criminal associations tied to my family's wealth. "I'm changing my name." The clerk raised an eyebrow. "That's a big deal, you know." I smiled tightly, feeling the weight of her gaze on me. "Yeah, I know." As she entered the information into the system, I felt a sudden rush of power. I was erasing everything. Every lie. Every betrayal. My old self was about to disappear, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The clerk handed me the paperwork with a quick smile. "You're all set. Your new name will be officially registered in 2 weeks. You'll get a confirmation letter by then." I took the papers without a word, feeling a surge of exhilaration. I had done it. Clara Harris was dead. I turned and walked out of the courthouse, my heart racing. But a new sense of clarity settled over me. This was no longer about revenge. It was about survival, about freedom. But the moment I stepped outside, the familiar sound of a phone buzzing broke my concentration. I didn't even need to check the number. I knew it was Luke. "I've been calling you," he said before I could speak. His voice was tense. "I need you to listen to me. You don't know what you're doing." I squeezed my eyes shut, fighting the sudden wave of frustration that threatened to swallow me whole. "No, Luke, you don't know what you've done." I wasn't angry anymore. I was cold. "Lena, stop this." His voice softened, but I could hear the desperation underneath. "It's bigger than you think. Please, this isn't just about us. It's bigger." I ignored his plea, my feet already moving toward the car. "You don't get to make the rules anymore," I said. "I'm done." I ended the call and tossed the phone into the passenger seat. As I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to break, that they were about to come for me, and not in the subtle way they had before. I had made the first move, and now the stakes were higher than ever. The next stop was already in my head. I had to get out of Houston, and fast. They would be looking for me, trying to stop me from claiming what was rightfully mine. I was no longer just a daughter. I was a threat, and once the truth came to light, there would be no going back. I sped down the highway, not looking back, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was right behind me. A car, a black sedan, had been following me since I left the courthouse. The tail lights blinked, but it was hard to tell if I was just paranoid or if they were really there. I glanced at the rearview mirror. They were still there. My fingers gripped the wheel tighter, but I didn't speed up. Not yet. Not until I was ready. I had learned long ago that panic only made you predictable, and I wasn't about to make that mistake. I turned into a side street and kept driving, trying to keep my movements erratic. I could feel the eyes on me, the knowledge that they were watching me from a distance. They would try to trap me, but I wouldn't let them. I pulled into an alleyway and killed the engine. Silence fell around me, and for a brief moment, I felt the calm that only comes when you know the game is about to change. But it didn't last long. A car pulled in behind me. The door opened with a creak, and then I saw him, the last person I ever expected to find in this situation. Luke. The moment I saw Luke, standing there in the alley with his hands outstretched, the weight of everything I had just uncovered crashed down on me. He was the last person I had expected to find, yet there he was, the person I had trusted most, the one I thought would be on my side no matter what. I stopped dead in my tracks, my breath coming in short bursts. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, my voice sharp. There was no warmth, no familiarity in my tone, only the cold, bitter edge of someone who had been deceived too many times. Luke took a step toward me, his expression filled with something I couldn't read. "Lena, this isn't what you think," he said softly, his voice shaking slightly. I shook my head. "Not again. You don't get to play the hero now. Not after everything. Not after what you've done." The words hit him like a physical blow, but he didn't flinch. "I know," he said quietly, "but you're in over your head. You don't understand the danger you're in." I took a step back, my eyes narrowing. "What danger? From you? From them?" I motioned toward the street, the darkness around us pressing in. "What are you really trying to say?" He hesitated, and for a moment I thought he might actually tell me the truth. But then his eyes flicked to something behind me. A flicker of fear passed across his face. That was all it took. I turned. They were here. The black sedan. It rolled up with terrifying precision, its headlights blinding, cutting through the shadows like a knife. 3 men emerged, all wearing dark suits, their faces hidden behind sunglasses, even at night. The men who had been watching me for days. The ones who worked for them, the syndicate, my father's partners. I felt my pulse spike. This was it. Luke stepped forward quickly, his hands up in surrender. "Lena, just listen to me. It's not too late to back down." But I wasn't listening. I was done listening. "Get out of here, Luke." I spat, every word like fire. "You've already made your choice. Now you'll have to live with it." But as he opened his mouth to speak again, one of the men in the suit pulled out a gun, aiming it directly at me. The world stopped. I froze, every muscle locking up. My mind screamed, but my body wouldn't move. All I could think about was the name change, the papers I had filed earlier, the future I was about to secure, and now it was all slipping away. Move, Lena. Now. The man barked, his voice low and rough. Luke stepped back, but not fast enough. One of the other men grabbed him by the arm and shoved him aside, sending him sprawling onto the ground. I barely registered it. All I could focus on was the gun, the cold, hard steel aimed at my head. Why? I found my voice hoarse but steady. Why this? Why now? The man didn't answer. He just stared at me, cold, emotionless. Then he raised his hand, the gun still trained on me. My mind raced. This was it. This was how it ended. But then, as if in slow motion, something shifted. Luke was on his feet, rushing toward me. Too late. I closed my eyes, the panic rising in my chest. God, not like this. But instead of the sharp sound of gunfire, there was a dull thud. I opened my eyes, confused, and saw Luke, the same man who had betrayed me, standing between me and the gunman, his body jerking with the force of a blow. He'd thrown himself in front of me. I staggered back, staring at him in shock. Luke's face was pale, but he was still standing, even as the blood began to stain his shirt. No, I whispered, my voice breaking. He smiled weakly. You were right, he gasped, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. The gunman hesitated for a moment, then turned his attention to Luke. Get out of the way, he growled. But Luke didn't move. He couldn't. I took a deep breath, everything in my body screaming to run. But instead, I looked directly at the man. I'm done running, I said, my voice steady. You want me? You'll have to kill me. The man's eyes narrowed, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. But before he could move, I saw the flash of red and blue lights in the distance. The police were here. My heart raced as the men in suits scrambled, clearly panicked. They hadn't planned for this. The truth was finally catching up with them. I didn't hesitate. This was my moment. I grabbed the papers, the ones that had the deeds, the proof, everything that could expose my family and their crimes. With a single motion, I shoved them into the pocket of my jacket, making sure they were secure. Drop the weapon, a voice shouted from behind me. The man hesitated for one more second. The gun wavered, and then the shot rang out, but it wasn't aimed at me. The gunman dropped to the ground, his weapon skittering across the pavement as the police swarmed in. The other men turned and ran, but they were outnumbered. It was over. I rushed to Luke's side, my hand shaking as I tried to stop the bleeding. Don't you dare leave me now, Luke. You owe me more than this. His eyes fluttered open for a moment, and he managed a weak smile. I always did, he whispered, his breath labored. But I never thought you'd be the one to win. And for the first time in years, I felt something inside me click into place. I had won. It was done. My family's empire was crumbling, and all their dirty secrets would be exposed. But more importantly, I had finally taken control of my own life. I would never be the person who begged for attention or approval again. Get him to the hospital. I screamed, not caring who heard me. Luke's life was in my hands now. As the ambulance doors slammed shut, I stood there in the chaos, knowing the fight wasn't over yet. But for the first time in a long time, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. This was my future, and this time I was the one who decided.